A neon vendetta burns with a cold, electric fire that no amount of digital rain can ever hope to put out. Witness the calculated path of a hero who lost everything, but found the strength to strike back against the darkness. Subscribe now and watch the debt be paid in full.
The night my brother moved his third box of beer into my refrigerator without asking, I told myself it was fine. He'd just gotten out of a rough patch. He needed time. I could give him time. That was 14 months before he called me a burden in my own living room. I own a 2-bedroom condo on the 4th floor of a building in Columbus, Ohio. I bought it when I was 28, after 6 years of picking up overtime shifts at the hospital where I work as a registered nurse, after skipping vacations and driving a car with a cracked dashboard and saying no to myself so many times that no started to feel like my default language. The down payment was $34,000. I wired it on a Tuesday morning and sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes afterward, just breathing. My name is on that deed. Mine alone. So let me back up, because the night my brother told me I was dead weight, his word, not mine, didn't come out of nowhere. It came from years of small things that I kept telling myself weren't that serious. And if you've ever had family like mine, you know exactly how that goes. You keep adjusting the threshold. You keep moving the line. I grew up in a mid-sized city in Ohio with my parents and my brother, who is 4 years older than me. My parents were not bad people in the way that makes a clean story. They didn't drink. They weren't cruel. But they had a particular blindness when it came to my brother, the kind that only gets worse. The older a family gets because nobody ever names it out loud. His name is not important. What is important is that he was always the one who needed more. More patience, more money, more chances. When he dropped out of his second year at Ohio State, my parents said he just needed to find himself. When his first apartment lease fell through because he hadn't paid rent in 3 months, my dad drove 4 hours to help him move his stuff into storage. When his landscaping business went under, the one my parents had quietly funneled $18,000 into, without telling me for almost a year, my mother told me over the phone, very gently, that family takes care of family. I was 24 then. I was working night shifts and studying for my licensure exam and eating grocery store sushi that was marked down because it was almost expired. I did not say what I was thinking. I said, "I know, Mom." That was the first time I understood that family takes care of family was a sentence that only ever pointed in one direction in our house. Here's what I want people to understand. Because I've seen the comments on videos like this, and I know someone out there is already asking why I didn't just say no from the beginning. I want to answer that honestly. When you grow up in a family where keeping the peace is survival, where the dinner table goes quiet and wrong if you push back, you learn very early that your needs are a disruption, not a crisis, just a disruption. An inconvenience. And you become very good at making yourself small because small things don't cause disruption. I was not a pushover because I was stupid. I was accommodating because that was the only version of love I'd been taught to recognize. I didn't understand any of this until I was 29 and sitting in a therapist's office in German Village, paying $140 a session. But that's where we're headed. The condo came first. I closed on it in March 2 years ago this spring. I had been living in a rental studio for 4 years, and I knew every crack in that ceiling. Getting the keys to my own place felt like something I can't describe without sounding like a greeting card. So I'll just say that I stood in the empty living room for a long time and felt like a person with a future. I moved in on a Saturday. My best friend, I'll call her my college roommate, helped me carry boxes. We ordered pizza and ate it on the floor, and she said, "You did this. You built this." And I believed her. My brother's situation deteriorated about 6 weeks after I moved in. His girlfriend of 2 years had asked him to leave their shared apartment. He told my parents he had nowhere to go. He told them he was struggling. He told them the job market was brutal, which, fair enough, it is. But he had also been fired from his last 2 jobs for what he described to me as personality conflicts and what his former supervisors might have described differently. My parents called me on a Sunday evening. My mother opened with, "We just want you to think about it," which is how she has always prefaced the things she has already decided. She said he just needed a few months. She said I had the extra bedroom. She said he was family, and she said it the way she always said it, not as a fact, but as a verdict. I want to tell you I said no. I didn't. I said I'd think about it. And then I thought about it for 48 hours. And then I called back and said, okay, temporarily 2 months maximum. He pays for his own groceries, and we set a move out date in writing. We did not put anything in writing. He moved in with 2 duffel bags and a PlayStation and was on my couch by the following Friday. The first month was almost fine. He looked for work, or at least he opened his laptop in the mornings. He didn't leave dishes in the sink too often. He was mostly quiet. The second month he stopped looking for work. He got into a routine. Wake up around noon, eat whatever was in the kitchen, spend the evenings on the couch with his headphones on. When I came home after 12-hour shifts, I would find the living room dim, the TV on, and him there in the middle of it like he'd grown out of the furniture. I said something around week 10. I said I needed to know his plan. He said he was working on it. I said the 2 month mark was coming up. He said things were complicated. I said I understood that, but I needed a timeline. He looked at me in a way that I can only describe as injured, like I had said something unkind. And he said, I thought you wanted to help me. There it was. That sentence. I thought you wanted to help me. Not I'm working on it, or here's my plan, but a reframe that made me the problem. I recognized it later for what it was. But in that moment, I backed down. I said of course I wanted to help him. I just needed to know things were moving forward. He stayed for month 3. Month 4. By month 5, he had a part-time job at a shipping warehouse 3 nights a week, which he told my parents about like it was a turning point, and which in practice meant he was sleeping until 2 in the afternoon and staying up until 4 in the morning, which disrupted my sleep schedule enough that I started waking up tired every shift. I was not sleeping well, I was not eating well, I was picking up extra shifts because my grocery bill had roughly doubled and my utility costs had gone up, and I kept telling myself I was being petty for noticing. My parents came to visit in month 6. My mother brought a casserole and moved things around in my kitchen, and my father sat at my dining table and told me, in a very warm, very genuine tone, that it was good of me to look after the family. He said he and my mother didn't know what they would have done without me stepping up. He said I was the reliable one. He always said that I was the reliable one, and I had always understood it as a compliment. I understand it differently now. The reliable one is just another way of saying, the one we can keep asking. I brought up the move-out date that evening. My brother was in the kitchen. My father looked at me and then looked at him and said, he's doing much better. Let's give it a little more time. My mother nodded. My brother did not say anything. I looked at my kitchen, my cabinets, my table, the window I had picked out the curtains for, and I said, okay. I don't know why I said okay. I think I was tired. I think I had been saying okay for so long that it came out automatically. By month 8, something had shifted. He had a friend visiting regularly, another guy I'd never met, who would show up in the evenings and they'd be loud until midnight. I said something. My brother got defensive. He said I was treating him like a tenant. I said technically yes, that was accurate, and he did not find that funny. He started making comments. Small ones, at first, about how I worked too much, how I didn't know how to relax, how I was wound tight. Not cruel, just commentary, like having a roommate who has decided they understand you better than you understand yourself. Then he said something to my mother on the phone, and she called me and she said gently that maybe I was being a little rigid, that living with someone meant compromise, that she hoped I was making him feel welcome. I was paying the mortgage on the place he was living in for free. I was buying the groceries he ate for breakfast. I was doing the laundry when it piled up because his stuff was always in the machine. And my mother was calling to ask if I was making him feel welcome. I want to be very precise about the night everything broke, because I replayed it enough times to have it memorized. It was a Thursday. I had worked a 10-hour shift. There had been a code on my floor. I had eaten a granola bar in the parking garage because I didn't have time for a real break. I came home at 7:30 and I could hear his friend's voice before I opened the door. There were 4 people in my living room. My brother, his friend from before, 2 other guys I had never seen. There were beer bottles on my coffee table. There was a pizza box on my kitchen counter, open, with 1 slice left that had clearly been there for hours. I stood in my own doorway for a second. Then I said I needed everyone out because I had an early shift the next morning. His friend, the one I didn't know, made a comment I won't repeat. My brother laughed. I said it again. I said I was serious. I needed them to leave. My brother stood up and I thought he was going to walk them out. Instead, he looked at me and he said, and this is the part I will not forget. He said, "You know what your problem is? You have this place and you think it makes you better than everyone. You act like we're the ones who owe you something." I said, "You're living here for free." "You do owe me something." He said, "You're so worried about your stuff. You've always been like this. You act like you're the only person in this family who ever did anything. You're not some saint, you know. You're actually kind of a burden to be around." I heard that word and something went very quiet in my chest. Burden. I had worked night shifts at 22 so I could put myself through my final clinical rotations without taking out more loans. I had said okay when my parents needed $4,000 for a car repair 3 years ago because my father's work truck broke down and they didn't have the savings. I had not said a word when they forgot to pay me back. And they forgot. I had let a man live in my home for 8 months without a lease, without rent, without a single formal agreement, because I believed that taking care of people I loved was something I was supposed to do without accounting. And he was calling me a burden. His friends left, eventually. I didn't say anything dramatic. I went to my room and I closed the door and I sat on the edge of my bed and I thought very carefully about everything I was going to do next. That night I texted my parents. I said I needed to talk to them the next day. I did not tell them what had happened yet. I wanted to say it out loud, to their faces, because I had been having phone conversations with my parents my whole life, where I said the true thing and then softened it again, until what I was actually saying was nothing. They drove up on Saturday morning. My brother was there. I made coffee and we all sat at my table. I had written some things down. Not a speech, just numbers. I wanted to have the numbers in front of me because I knew what would happen if I didn't. I knew my mother would say the word family, and something in me would short circuit. I said, he had been here for 8 months. I had absorbed the full cost of utilities, groceries, and any household supplies during that time, which I had calculated roughly at $490 a month beyond my normal expenses. That was not counting the early lease break fee I'd paid when I needed the room for storage before he moved in, which was $300. My father started to say something. I kept going. I said I wanted him out by the end of the month. I said it clearly. No qualifications, no "if that works" attached to the end of it. My mother looked at my brother. My brother looked at the table. My father said that seemed harsh. He said family doesn't keep score. He said he was surprised I would speak to them this way after everything they'd done for me. I asked him what they had done for me. He said, "We raised you." I said, "I know. And I'm 30 years old, and I bought this home and I've supported myself since I was 22, and I've also, in the last 3 years, given or absorbed costs for this family that total somewhere around $18,000. Not counting the last 8 months. My mother said I sounded like I was reading from a spreadsheet. She said money wasn't everything. She said my brother was going through a hard time. I said I understood that, and I was sorry his time was hard, and he needed to be out by the end of the month. Then my father said it. I don't think he meant it the way it landed. I think he was frustrated and scared for my brother, and he reached for something that would land, and it did. He looked at me and said, "You know, for someone who has so much, you are remarkably selfish. You sit here in your nice condo, and you act like you've earned the right to turn your back on your own family. Your brother needs you. And you're worried about grocery bills." My mother did not disagree. I sat with that for a moment. Then I said, very evenly, "Dad, you are sitting in a home I own and paid for. I work night shifts. I have supported myself without any help from either of you since I was 22. I gave you $4,000 3 years ago when your truck broke down and you never paid it back. I have fed and housed your son for 8 months without asking for anything. I am not selfish. I am done." The table got quiet. I said I loved them. I meant it. I said the end of month date was not a negotiation. I talked to a housing attorney that Monday. I wanted to understand my rights clearly since he'd been there long enough that the legality was blurry. The attorney helped me draft a formal notice to vacate with 30 days' notice, which I served to my brother properly. I also talked to a financial advisor about a written repayment agreement for the costs I had absorbed, which my parents eventually, reluctantly, signed, covering $6,000 of what I'd calculated. It wasn't everything. I knew it wouldn't be. But it was documented. He moved out on day 28. He didn't say much when he left. I helped him carry the PlayStation to his car. I don't know why. Habit, maybe. Or because he was still my brother, even with everything. My parents and I didn't speak for about 6 weeks. My mother called first. She didn't apologize exactly. She said she understood I had been under a lot of strain. I accepted that because I have learned that some people's apologies are the size they can give, and deciding whether that's enough is a separate question from the facts. The condo is quiet now. I repainted the spare room. It's an office. I put a desk in there and a reading chair I found at an estate sale, and I sit in it on my days off and drink coffee and read. And it is genuinely one of the better things in my life right now. I want to say something to anyone reading this who recognizes what I'm describing. Being generous does not mean you have to be infinite. Loving people does not mean absorbing whatever they need to put down. I spent years believing that the truest way to show love was to make yourself smaller and quieter and more convenient for everyone around you, and I lost years to that belief. Setting a boundary is not selfish. Knowing what you have built and what you will and won't allow in your space is not selfish. Having a number in your head, a line, and holding to it, even when someone you love is standing on the other side of it, is not selfish. It is just knowing who you are. My son. I have a 6-year-old, which I haven't mentioned until now because it's the thing I am most protective of in my life. He knows where I work and what I do, and he has told several people at his school that his mom helps sick people. He said it once at drop-off to another parent, unprompted, and I had to walk back to my car and just sit there for a minute. I don't want him to learn that love means disappearing. I want him to watch me hold my ground and understand that you can love people and still have limits, that those two things are not contradictions, that you can hand someone a cardboard box and help them carry their PlayStation to their car and still be the person in this story who did the right thing. I am not a burden. I never was. I've thought a lot about what my brother said that night. Not obsessively, I'm past that, but in the way you turn a stone over just to make sure you've seen both sides clearly. He called me a burden. In my home, at my table, under a roof I paid for with 6 years of night shifts and skipped vacations and granola bars eaten in parking garages because I didn't have time for a real meal. And the thing I keep coming back to is not the anger I felt in that moment. The anger made complete sense. But the fact that I almost believed him. That's the part that took me the longest to sit with. When you spend enough years making yourself smaller for people who never asked you to stop, you start to internalize their version of you. You start to wonder if maybe the problem really is that you're too rigid, too focused on numbers, too unwilling to just let things go. You carry their discomfort like it belongs to you. I did that for a long time. And the honest truth is that it cost me, not just the money, not just the sleep, not just the $490 a month I was absorbing without a word, but something quieter than all of that. It cost me the belief that my needs were legitimate. What I understand now, looking back at all of it, is that the way things ended was not an accident. My brother did not end up sleeping in his car. He landed on his feet within 2 months, which told me something. The struggle he'd been performing for over a year had a floor to it, a floor made of the certainty that I would keep catching him. The moment I removed that floor, he found another one. That is not a coincidence. That is cause and effect, plain and simple. And my parents who sat at my table and called me selfish, they came around. Not completely, not with a formal apology that fixed everything. But my mother called. My father eventually stopped bringing up my brother's situation when we talked. The $6,000 agreement got signed. Small things, slow things, but things that only happened because I stopped absorbing the consequences of everyone else's choices and made the consequences land where they actually belonged. I think about what I want my son to take from watching me go through this. He's 6, he doesn't know the details, but children understand more than we think. They read the room. They watch how the adults in their lives handle being wronged. They take notes on whether the people they love know how to stand up for themselves. I don't want him to grow up believing that generosity means having no bottom. I want him to see that you can be kind and have limits. That those two things don't cancel each other out. That real strength is not about being hard. It's about being honest. Even when honesty costs you something in the short term. The condo is still mine. The office I made out of that spare room is still one of my favorite places in the world. My reading chair is still there, and on my days off, I still drink coffee in it and feel genuinely like a person who built something real. That didn't happen by accident either. It happened because at some point, I decided that knowing what you've earned and protecting it is not selfishness. It is just intelligence. It is just character. And those things, unlike a $6,000 repayment agreement, nobody can sign away from you.